this guy, you know, I don't think he cares if he is infamous, if he's the most hated man in America. He just wants to be famous. As long as his
Mhm.
as long as he is in the spotlight for whatever reason, that's all he really cares about. I mean, it's just infuriating. But uh,
Mhm.
good, good, Lizzie. I have some comments online I want to get to.
It should be noted that there was a fatality today. So, a woman who was shot inside the Capitol, shot in the chest inside the Capitol earlier today during this attempted coup. She died later. In addition to that, several police officers were injured. Like this wasn't something just some fly by night. Oh, we're mad. We're gonna scream and go home. Oh, someone died. Police officers were injured. Several people are going to go to jail. Like for what? Because your leader is feeding you a bunch of lies. He did not win by a lance. In fact, he lost by 8 million plus
It
votes.
was, there's been at least three closer races just recently.
Ridiculous.
so
Absolutely ridiculous.
so Daria Winter says, "Who are these people? They are special." Mike Winter says, "I love the Karen who was in shock and was crying when she got maced. Hilarious." Uh,
Oh yeah,
Right?
that was fun.
Jeanette Brown says, "No shame. They don't feel shame. Brain science, dangerous. Narcissists can take out the human race." That's actually true. One narcissist could take out the human race,
Well, that's
especially
it.
in a world where our world that we're in now.
By using his platform and with that bogus message, just the I love you, the stolen election, he has legitimized his fanatics' actions and their feelings. This is completely his fault. His complete disregard for the electoral rules, the laws, and the processes has emboldened his followers to descend on Capitol Hill today and behave in the manner that they did. It's
Yeah.
mind boggling.
Kevin Daxon makes a good point. He says the Republicans contesting the vote today were trying to get the Trump supporters to follow him. So they're actually trying to get those particular people following him. Jacqueline Robbins says Pence needs to invoke the 25th Amendment. Believe it or not, 45 endangered his life by also by trashing him to the cult. He endangered Pence's life.
That's true.
I
He
It's
think
did
true.
Pence
do
is
that.
so shocked. Like, I don't think he ever thought that his boss, that Donald Trump, would turn on him in the way that he has. But Trump has been trashing Pence for the past 48 hours because Pence had the presence of mind to say, I cannot change the vote.
The
It is not
Constitution.
within my power to do that. I have to
Mhm.
follow the laws of the Constitution. And Trump doesn't buy into that argument. But it's not, just Mike Pence, it's Ted Cruz, it's Jim Jordan, it's everybody who decided that they were going to dissent and object today, who were following this nonsense that started this process of these people outside who thought, okay, we have been wrong, so let's do something about it.
I want to
So they
remind.
are
Okay.
I was just going to say, so they are, because by law, technically, they have to certify the electoral votes on January 6th. That is an article of the Constitution. That is a
It
law.
is
And
1 p.m. Yep.
they started again, I believe, at 8 o'clock.
Hmm.
And so there have been a couple of Republicans who said they were objecting earlier, who have since retracted from that and be like, okay, this is too much. This is too much.
Yeah.
I did not buy into this. This is not what I came to the table for. But even if you listen to what Ted Cruz was saying earlier today, it was bullshit. He's like, no, we're not trying to turn over the election. But what we're asking you all is for 10 days to do an investigation. Another investigation? The votes have been counted and recounted. It's been taken to several courts and been thrown out. The Supreme Court has spoke out on this, and still you want an additional 10 days? For what?
No.
For what?
And
It's
trying to
ridiculous.
stall. Yeah, they just want to stall and prolong the process as long as possible. And part of me thinks they're trying to get it to go past inauguration day and just make things and mess up things as much as possible for Biden coming in.
Jacqueline Robinson says he's a sociopath. As soon as we understand and accept that, everything starts to make sense. Kevin Thaxton has said, it's sad you get fired 2 weeks before you retire. That's if he would invoke the 25th Amendment. But to that point, Ilhan, well, first of all, Trump has already been impeached once, right? But Ilhan, Representative Ilhan, I think she's out of Minnesota. I think it's Minnesota.
Yes.
So yeah. Yeah.
She suggested she was going to write up additional articles of impeachment currently to get him out of office now. I completely support that. I mean, Patrick, what do you think? I mean, do you think that's even a possibility?
No.
Could it happen?
Well, at this point, I wonder. It would take. I suppose they could have it go quickly, but I think invoking the 25th Amendment, though, because he's not, the way that he acts, he is not of sound mind. He is not capable of being president anymore, and he's acting in such a way that really puts the country at danger. So
if Pence evoked the 25th, I would be in 100% support of Pence, and I would look at Pence in new eyes. Right now, he's just a lapdog to me.
Pence has to ask mother first. He has to ask mother. So.
Right.
I mean, there are Republicans that might be moving in this direction. I think folks like Romney and Sass and we'll see if it picks up momentum, but it might be. Otherwise, for the next 2 weeks, we're going to be dealing with one episode like this after another. I think he's going to keep on riling up his supporters right up until the 20th.
He might even do it on the 20th.
Well, that's the thing. Even on the 20th, so his supporters are saying they're not done yet. This isn't the end of it. Like, he's already said that he is going to there's going to be the inauguration festivities, and he had already planned to have counter festivities on the same day. So now, and this is the thing that again pisses me off about the way this was security-wise policed and handled today. The terrorists walked away feeling like they gained something, like they won the first round.
They did win.
And so now
they are talking
about, we're not done yet. We're coming back. We're coming back. Wait till Inauguration Day.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, I really don't want this to turn into some mini civil war here. Like, we have to get our ducks in order and shut this down immediately. And we have yet, we're halfway through the show, and we have yet to talk about the color, the racial demographics involved in this. Because I think everyone on this panel knows, if those people who stormed the Capitol had been of a different hue, of a darker hue, we would be having a very different conversation. There would have been tons of fatalities. There would have been people beaten, maimed, shot, all of it.
We talked about it before, because when they stormed the Michigan state house, I mean, with guns and everything, what happened to them?
And they had a plan. They had a plan for worse. They had a plan in Michigan.
But you get counter protesters, Black Lives Matter and everything in Black Lives Matter Plaza, and they're tear bombing them. And I mean, don't forget all the shootings at the other protests and what they did in Seattle, and Trump going online talking about these are thugs and these are this and this and that, and then sending all his troops, his federal police into other states, policing their riots. But then he comes here and incites his own.
So Ernest Cooper just posted a good quote. He said, "We're not asking you to shoot them like you shoot us. We're asking you not to shoot us like you don't shoot them."
Good
point.
That's a very good point. And the lack of response really kind of blows me away, because as the day unfolded, they found, whether they were mock or real, devices that resembled pipe bombs, and law enforcement took them away and exploded them safely. There were chemical irritants that were used against police officers. Visitors stormed the premises, So they ran past all the metal detection systems. And like these poor politicians, staffers, security personnel, media, were all placed at risk because they had no idea what kind of weaponry was on-prem. And back to what Nina was saying, like hours into the crisis, hours, they started retaliating with strobe lights, a little bit of tear gas, a flashbang. If there had been a destructive element at play, at just a foreign or domestic terrorist threat that was really hell bent on doing some damage today, they would have had more than enough time to make their way to the Capitol after the news coverage started and not be dispersed or turned away. They could have caused some real damage. So just to
They could have
really
started
echo what
fires. They're lucky. I mean, it's lucky it never it didn't happen. I mean, they could have completely burned because they were just running free throughout the Capitol
I
today.
mean, for hours, they were running free throughout the Capitol. For hours. Again, taking.
And
I
that's
wanted
it.
to.
I think there
Go,
was something
Gianni.
like 13 people. 13 people arrested.
Only 13. Really?
13?
Something like that, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that's
That
that's
was,
a lot
that
of
was one
people.
number I
Oh,
heard.
wow.
There might have been more after that.
Baker.
But that was it. That was it.
Wow.
That's an impressive
got
number
an
there. Woo.
And even Baker's done that.
They should have had the paddy wagons lined up and been putting them in those little tie wrap handcuffs and dragging them off like that's what
Yeah,
they
it was
would
fine.
that's what they do for that's what they've done for other protests.
I mean, I saw not nary one baton, nary one kick in the head, very little tear. Like it just, there was no aggression with dealing with these terrorists, which
Gianni,
we know would have been a different story if they were of a different color or of a different hue. This picture, I think, throughout the day, probably is the one that pisses me off the most.
Yeah.
Because you have someone walking through the walls of the Capitol with a Confederate flag. This didn't even happen in the 1800s.
yep.
This
Didn't
didn't
happen in the Civil War. Yep.
did not happen in the Civil War at all.
Yep.
How dare you? How dare you? Awful. Just awful.
Not only that, I wanted to get to Gianni. Go ahead, Gianni.
Oh no, I wanted to make mention because we were talking about the whole race of it all. There's a tweet that was by Alex Wagner, and he said there is a deep historic connection between yesterday and today. Black grassroots organizations mobilizing Black voters to elect a Black and Jewish senator from the Deep South, and a white terrorist mob overtaking the Capitol to stop the democratic process. So that picture just kind of signifies what this tweet is saying, and I just wanted to,
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go next. Is in Georgia, we just elected the first Black senator for that state. First Black senator for that state. And Gianni, I want you to speak on that because you helped with that that effort.
Yeah. So, I kind of helped a
what
little
you did.
bit.
Yeah, tell us what you were doing.
Yeah, towards the tail end, I kind of I went out with a group of people who were for the Democratic Party, and we surveyed people on who they were voting for. And for people that were undecided, we did leave a pamphlet just speaking on what the Democratic senators were to bring and stuff like that. So I do believe efforts like from people like me that have been doing it for this entire year, and Stacey Abrams and all of that entire crew, that is the reason why this is the outcome today. So yeah.
Yeah, Stacey Abrams did an amazing effort. Pat, do you know Stacey at all? Do you know Stacey? Have you met her?
I've never met her. I never met her personally. She really is an inspiration though, and I know she's planning on running for governor again in 2022. So keep up the work down there in Georgia, and let's make that happen.
Yeah,
she's great.
Yeah, you definitely got to get her elected because she is Georgia to me at this point. But
Amazing.
Right,
Amazing.
like signifies that.
And this is a woman who in the same vein that we're talking about Trump, this is a woman who lost an election. She didn't have a tantrum. She didn't call for riots or anything. She went out in the streets and talked to people and registered them to vote. She participated again in the democratic process. And so I want to thank her for all that she's done up until this point. Because I mean, you know, if I can give you the truth about Lizzie Enders. I might be hurt for a little bit if I lost an election, especially if I think that I lost an election the way she did, which was kind of, you know, controversial in itself. But no, she dusted her shoulders off and she went out and was like, okay, it might not be me, but I'm going to incite my people to vote for other seats that might help this process, that might invoke change in the state of Georgia. And so I applaud her and thank her for that. 100%.
Yeah, that's huge. That's superwoman stuff.
And there was outright voter suppression in 2018 when she ran last time. They were messing them up with the polling places. They had them closed. They had lines around the block and were closing them early and she had a right to be upset, but yet she kept going, and she's
Absolutely.
she's organizing, and she's fixing the problem so that more people are enfranchised, and it's working.
Let's take a look at Joe Biden, President-elect's response. I don't have the whole thing here, but I do have a part of it. So let's take a